Welcome to our session, Simplify User Access with Setup with Agentforce. Before we get started, this is our forward-looking statement. As always, please make your purchasing decisions based off of current features. I'm Anusha Venkatesan, Product Manager, Platform Identity, and I'm joined by my colleagues Larry and Mahesh. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Larry Tung. I'm part of the user access space and specifically focused also on sharing.
Hey everyone, I'm Mahesh Shivlingappa. I'm the product manager for permissioning and authorization. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, today we're excited to show you how Setup with Agentforce can transform your job. Using Setup with Agentforce, you'll be able to use natural language to troubleshoot, configure, and assess your org's health. We'll be covering 6 key areas across authorization and authentication landscape. While the heart of our session is going to be about troubleshooting, we all know that every successful user journey begins with what? Any clues? Logins, yes, a successful login. So we'll start there and then dive into user access. Introducing John. So John is a new admin at Global Airlines. He's got an entire roadmap ahead of him, and people are looking at him to make magic. But he is not intimidated. He's an agent blazer, and he's excited to unleash the power of Agentforce to transform his organization and make an impact. He starts his day logging in using his email. He's taken to the environment switcher over there. He can see his production and sandbox orgs all in one place, including his trial orgs. He goes in to rename his org to be able to classify it and find it later on. He's going to favorite it now so he can easily access it the next time he logs in. And as his orgs grow, he can easily search and find his orgs as well. So he's clicking on that tile and entering his password. And there's been no usernames, no custom domains to remember, no separate places for sandbox and production orgs. It's all in here in one place. And if you're on mobile, this is especially useful. The good news is this is going to be the default experience for login.salesforce.com and test.salesforce.com users starting September 2026. Combined with passkeys, this is probably going to be the most secure, friction-free login experience. Now, it's been a few weeks in, and John wants to focus on strategy. But the everyday login and access issues keep eating into his time and attention. He decides to do something about it. How can Agentforce help? He's an Agentforce first admin, so he goes into setup, and he goes to org health and usage. Here, he can find things that need his attention and recommendations. We also have security assessments, and there he finds login errors for that org. He decides to dive deep in to see what's going on, and he asks Agentforce. How many of you remember login history? Yes, that's history now. We're going away from downloads and reports to just conversation. So Agentforce is able to give him a summary of the login failures. And he's also checking to see if there's mobile-specific issues. So he's asking for platform issues. And then he understands it's all about the passwords. Now, while he's at it, he gets a request to reset the password. Now, what are the odds of that? In the flow of work, conversationally, he resets the password and confirms. He confirms the user, and that helps him trust that the agent is doing the right thing, and he completes the request. He can also freeze and unfreeze users from within this conversation, and he can also terminate user sessions conversationally from within this conversation. Confirm the user, and sessions have been terminated. It's as easy as that. Now, John has saved himself a lot of time. He's also moved his org from passwords to passkeys and saved his users a lot of time. From clicks to conversations, John is able to make time for strategy, but he's solved for login issues. What about user access issues? Well, that's a whole other challenge. And Larry is here to talk to you about how Agentforce can help John.
All right, let's take a look. Now we're at record access. So John, our admin, he gets a message. He gets a message from Sarah. She's saying, hey, I don't have access to this specific opportunity. What's going on? My colleague Harry has access. And so instead of having to do this himself, he's going to now delegate over to the setup with Agentforce. And he's asking, please compare Sarah and Harry's access for this specific opportunity. And setup with Agentforce will now do that work. It will check the org-wide default. It will look at the various sharing mechanisms. And it will determine, why doesn't Sarah have access? How does Harry have access? And so forth. And so we see the organization-wide default set to private. And so that's why Sarah doesn't yet have access. But Harry, he has access because he's part of a specific public group that's used in a sharing rule. Now before, we could ask the agent to help add Sarah to that same public group. But what if instead we ask who else has access? Gives us some ideas. Let's just make sure we're doing the right thing, getting the right access. And here the agent comes back and sees, well, Ellie, she's the owner of the opportunity. Valerie's on the sales team. And you have other public groups. So it gives you some ideas of, what option should I choose? The one thing that's called out at the very bottom, it says the results don't include record access granted through review all, modify all permissions, role hierarchy, and also sharing sets. Sharing sets, oops. Sharing sets. So that's with our external users. Let me just get back to where I was. But so sharing sets were right here. So one key thing is setup with Agentforce is able to help out on external users. So if you have those in your org, you can ask setup with Agentforce, hey, how does this external user have access? And it'll be able to reason. Was it the sharing rule, sharing set, and so forth? Oh man, sorry. Hit that button one more time. All right. So let's get back to where we were. So one of the key things here is that you see the users, the roles, and the groups that have access. And we could have enumerated, we could have shown you all the users who have access. But that can be somewhat challenging if your org is quite large. You have a lot of system administrators, people view all. And so that's why we stuck the sharing hierarchy here as well. So this brings you to that lightning page. And from this lightning page, you see all the users who have access. And so you can drill in and look at a specific user. But the setup with Agentforce, it also knows about specific people. So again, you can just ask in natural language, and it'll determine the user's access. And it can even show you all the reasons why a specific user has various access. Maybe they're getting edit or read in different ways. So that's a bit more about setup with Agentforce in terms of what it can do. But when you're troubleshooting, there's times where you might be seeing a lot of sharing rules, right? Like in your org, you may have many. And so you can ask the agent, hey, what are the sharing rules on a specific object? And it's going to pull them up. And so it's going to give you that list of all the sharing rules that you've created. But for troubleshooting, you might want to zoom in on a specific user or a role or public group. And here we can see there's at least 5 sharing rules on opportunity that you already have in your org. But let's dive a bit more. Harry. Right, so maybe we want to understand all of the rules that are granting Harry access. And so it's going to know the role hierarchy and the various relationships, and then it decides, well, there's actually 3 sharing rules in your org that specifically are granting Harry access on opportunity. And so this is valuable if you now need to set up Sarah in a similar way. All right, so let's recap what we saw. 1, you saw just the agent be able to really troubleshoot one specific record. You could compare 2 users. You could drill in on one specific user, see how the various access. And you can also have it enumerate all of the various users who have access. And then right now, we can also help you out with sharing rules. So instead of you having to know, well, here's the specific user's role, how it relates in the role hierarchy, or nesting in public groups, we'll take care of all of that for you. And so it's going to then allow you to save quite a bit of your time. Now, let's move on. We're going from record access and now moving to objects and fields. Take it away, Mahesh.
Thanks, Larry. All right, that was a great demo showcasing how we troubleshoot current access. But let's take a look at another scenario where somebody's just lost access. And let's say they don't have access to any of the records of a particular object type. Beyond sharing, that usually comes down to object permissions. So let's take a look at an example of a day-to-day life, a scenario that every admin has to go through. It's Friday afternoon or Friday evening, 4:30. John, our admin, is finishing up his work and getting ready to head home. Just as he's about to get up from his chair to sign off, Harry Long pings him. We know Harry. Larry just introduced Harry and Sarah. Harry pings him. He's frantic. He's like, hey, John, I need some help. Sarah and I have been working on these brand alliance objects or records all week, and all of a sudden, I'm not able to access any of them. Sarah just messaged me 30 minutes ago saying she just made her final edits, and I just need to go, review it and approve. Can you please help me out? I need to finish this today. I need to close the deal today. So let's see how John gets to work and how Agentforce, setup with Agentforce, can help him out. So John starts by trying to figure out the obvious, right? He's trying to confirm what Harry just said. How does Harry Long even have access to this object? Agentforce does the work for him. He's trying to figure out what access Harry has on this object. And as John suspected, or rather we expected, Harry does not have any access on the object. So the next thing is, John remembers that Sarah was just able to edit it, right? So Sarah should technically still have access to this. So let's compare Harry's access to Sarah's right now. Voila. Sarah has full access on the Brand Alliance object. So the obvious next step is to figure out how does Sarah get access to this object. If John's able to figure that out, maybe he can just assign that to Harry to unblock him. So as you can see, as Harry's thinking, and whatever he's thinking, he's just asking the agent to do the work. Excellent. The agent comes back with exactly what Harry wanted to know. The Brand Alliance full access permission set is how Sarah gets access to this. At this point, it seems obvious. If he just reassigns the permission set to Harry, Harry should be unblocked, right? But there's something bugging John. Harry was able to edit this object all week. What changed? Something's changed in between, and he wants to get to the root of this. So usually answering this question means you're looking at you're querying the setup audit trail, maybe downloading the entire setup audit trail, doing this in outside of setup. He wants to see if the agent can help out with this. So he asked the agent, hey, Harry Long had access to this yesterday, but he doesn't anymore. What changed? And let's see if the agent can query the setup audit trail and help John out here. Wow. The agent not only brings back the exact log line that he is interested in, but it also gives you an awesome summary of how this change could have impacted Harry's access. So now John is confident to go ahead and reassign the permission set back to Harry and unblock him, which is exactly what John is going to do next. There you go. He's going to reassign the permission set back to Harry Long. Since this is a configuration change, the agent doesn't do anything in isolation. It always confirms with the user before it saves anything in the org. So it's assigning the permission set to Harry. As I mentioned, it brings up a draft. Everything looks good to John. And he hits confirm. And just like that, John not only was able to troubleshoot Harry's object access issues, but also fix it just by having a conversation with the agent. So let's recap. The agent was able to help John troubleshoot object access. It was able to query the setup audit trail, which would have taken John on a click marathon. And finally, it was able to help him assign the permission set to Harry. Next up is user permissions. We've seen troubleshooting record access and object permission. Troubleshooting user permission shouldn't be any different, right? It should just be just as easy as having the conversation. So let's take another example. Alex, our intern, started with the company 2 weeks ago, and he's been tasked with some easy tasks where he's helping out with some auditing. And earlier in the day, he pings John and says, hey, I made some good progress on my auditing work, but I'm not able to export reports. Can you please take a look and see what's going on? So John's feeling energized right now. He was able to save so much time in troubleshooting Harry's issues. So he's like, you know what? Before I sign off and head out for dinner, I'm going to help. I'm going to see if I can help Alex and unblock him. So John starts by first figuring out what user permission is even required to export reports. Maybe John knows this, but it's always good to confirm. And the agent is aware of not only your metadata context, but also the Salesforce public documentation. So it knows what permissions are required for your specific tasks. So it comes back and says, to export reports, you need export reports. No points for guessing there, by the way. So at this point, John wants to see if there are any permission sets that currently grant this permission. Because if there's something that he can find appropriate, he can just assign that to Alex, and Alex would be unblocked. By the way, this operation, I think everybody knows if you have to do this in setup or in traditional setup today, it just takes you on a click marathon. You have to go through each permission set, click inside, go see if that permission is assigned or not, and then if you have 100 or 500, it's going to take forever to figure that out. This takes a little time as well, but it's better than doing this manually. So looks like the agent came back with a couple of permission sets. At this point, John is thinking, OK, these permission sets seem to be doing a little more and granting a little more access than John, or rather Alex, would need at this point. So it makes sense to probably just create a new permission set. Who else agrees with that? Right? I see some heads nodding. And that's exactly what John does. He's like, let me just go ahead and create a permission set for export reports that I can just assign to Alex. To reiterate, this is another configuration change. So the agent is going to draft the proposed change before asking the user to save. All right, it pulls up a draft. Look at that. It added a dependency that could be, that's pretty easy to miss. OK, looks good. John hits save. Saving the permission set now. He's already thinking about what he's going to order for dinner. Excellent. At this point, all he needs to do is just assign this to Alex and probably DM him on Slack saying, hey, you're good to go. Agentforce pulls up a draft. He confirms. And Alex should be able to download reports now. Awesome. So let's recap. The agent was able to help John identify user permissions for a particular task. The agent was able to help John with finding permission sets that have a particular permission associated with it. And finally, it was able to help him create a permission set as well as assign it. By the way, he didn't have to click anything. It was just having a conversation all the way through. So we went through like maybe three demos showing troubleshooting. Let's take a look at user management and user configuration. Anusha started off with a couple of those use cases where these daily routine user management tasks like freeze a user or change password, revoke session. There are a few more that can be really helpful to admins to supercharge their productivity. Okay, let's go back to Sarah and Harry. Sarah and Harry's team is growing. They have way more work than they can currently handle right now. So they have decided to hire Ron Smith, and it is John, the admin's responsibility, to onboard him. So John decides to just clone Harry's permissions because they're going to be teammates. The agent is cloning not only all of Harry's fields, but also cloning, or will clone all of his assignments and permissions. So the agent is asking for a few basic information, like Ron's name, username, email, clone assignments, and submit. Okay, it pulls up a draft. Everything looks good to John. Excellent. The agent is doing work in the background, just cloning all the assignments, all of the permissions, everything that can be cloned from Harry is cloned. Let's take a look at what all it cloned at this point. As you can see, the permissions, all the permissions associated with Harry, your user, object, field permissions, your custom permissions. It clones all of your assignments, permission set group assignments, permission set assignments, public groups, queues, everything was cloned with single utterance. John confirms everything. Everything looks good. All he needs to do right now is activate Ron. And Ron is ready to go to work. So we've heard admins say that cloning a user manually would take upwards of 45 minutes to 1 hour. This is our attempt to give you that 1 hour back per user. Oops. Let's recap. The agent was able to help John clone the user in under 5 minutes, and also activate the user so that Ron is ready to go to work as soon as he logs in. Whew, that was a lot. That was a lot of demos. So let's see. These are all the things that the agent was able to help John achieve today. The important thing to note here is it not only saved John a lot of time while he was going through these tasks, but also made the experience way more intuitive than ever before. I know what you guys are thinking at this point. What next, right? Where do we go from here? So let's take a look at our roadmap. One of the most common requests we've gotten over the years is, hey, all of this is great for troubleshooting, but can you give us a way to do a side-by-side comparison? Maybe a side-by-side comparison of 2 users. Maybe I want to see a side-by-side comparison of their permissions, their assignments. Why stop there? I want to compare 2 permission sets, 2 profiles, a permission set and a profile. I'm talking too much. Let's actually take a look at a demo. Wouldn't it be awesome if John was able to see a side-by-side comparison of Sarah and Harry's access? Let's take a look. He's just comparing the 2 users right now. Wow, look at that. A side-by-side comparison of assignments, permission sets, permission set group assignments, object permissions. Look how beautiful that CRUD access comparison is. FSL comparison. And your user permissions all the way at the bottom. With so much data on your screen, wouldn't it be awesome to have a way to search? So let's look for brand alliance. Look at that. John was able to solve Harry's access issues quick, but with this, he would have probably gotten there even sooner. Again, this is a work in progress right now. Our engineers are hard at work trying to get this out for you guys, maybe in the upcoming release, maybe in the upcoming beta release. Latest is by GA. So if you have any feedback, please let us know as to how you would like to see this evolve. I promised that was the last demo. With that, I'll hand it over to Larry to bring us home with the rest of the feedback, or rather, roadmap.
Thanks, Mahesh. And so Mahesh mentioned some dates, but before we go, we focused a lot about troubleshooting. Those were the primary use case that we showed you today. All of that is working. And we also mentioned, Mahesh had shown being able to create a permission set. You can create a permission set group, sharing rule. You can manage the assignments on permission sets and so forth. So there's a bunch of things you can already configure. And we want to eventually be able to also help you assess your org. So in some sense, give you an idea of, hey, what would Salesforce recommend you prioritize from a tech debt perspective, perhaps improving either security posture or performance of your org. And so we're going to talk about what's coming. So right now we're in beta. We'll still be in beta in June, but that's the next set of enhancements will be coming. And then we're planning to be GA in September. And then we're also just showing you some of the things that we have planned. And if some of these things you're looking at troubleshooting, you're like, man, there's some hard problems we didn't cover today. We would love to hear your feedback. So from here, we're really trying to help the agent really know your org. And so from there, then the agent's going to then be able to help summarize, hey, for a specific permission set, what's there, and be able to describe that to you. In terms of configuration, there's a bunch of things we can already configure. And if you're wondering, hey, what about user access policies? We're going to hopefully be able to address those as well to help you both create and manage. And then from assessing, these are some examples of what's going to be available soon. Being able to tell you, hey, there's a bunch of unassigned permission sets or unused roles. And we have more ideas to help as we get toward GA and post-GA. Now, we've shown you a lot, and I'd urge you, hey, why don't you try this in Trailhead? So there's a QR code. This Trailhead just became available Monday. So it's hot off the press. Try it out. And then if you have feedback for us, one way is just to go to the community group. And we've been getting customer feedback already, but we would love to hear from you as well. At this point, I want to thank you guys for coming.